Welcome to the Microdosing for Healing podcast. I'm your host, Casey Garrett, and together we'll be discovering and learning from inspiring voices of healers, medicine keepers, and visionaries. Every episode, we'll explore the world of health, vibrant wellness, and natural medicine for a new era of human society. Welcome to today's episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Casey Garrett, and I'm the founder here at Microdosing for Healing, and I would love to welcome you to practice. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm honored to be with you as you begin your microdosing journey. So thank you so much for being here. Welcome. So many of you are coming to microdosing practice for so many beautiful, diverse reasons at this point. You've probably been reading, you probably heard some articles about it, some podcasts about it. Maybe you heard about it from some friends and family and colleagues that had a good experience with it. It really is at a moment in time where we're all stepping forward into our empowered personal healing. People are really starting to step forward and take their health back into their own hands. A lot of people want to return to earth-based practices and medicines, people wanting to move off of the synthetic for-profit systems. Welcome. You're here at the perfect time. I have been doing this work, microdosing, guideship, and facilitation full-time since 2020. I have worked with several thousand people in practice at this point, and I too have had a very personally extraordinary experience with the medicine. So I cannot imagine my life at this point without having practiced microdosing with mushrooms. I can't imagine physically, mentally, but also spiritually and personal development wise too. So whatever your reason for coming, I embrace and welcome you. And the beautiful part of medicine practice is no matter what you tend to come for initially, there is so much more that is possible. So I always invite people when you're first starting out in practice is to think of the first 3 months as just opening the door with the medicine. You might very well come for physical symptoms or a specific health condition, but over time, as you develop a relationship with the medicine, it very well might be a relationship you have the rest of your life, where it's like a dance. Sometimes you're close with the medicine, sometimes you step away and you're just living life, and then maybe something else pops up in life and you want to come back to the medicine and work with the medicine. So just know your first weeks and months of practice is really just getting to know yourself and your relationship with the medicine in many ways. So welcome. Let me go over some of the basics with you. I would love to address some of the questions that I get off the bat from everybody when they first come to practice for the first time. So the first one is, I think, a big misconception that microdosing is going to be similar to a pharmaceutical experience. There's so much talk and framing around mushrooms and microdosing in the mental health space, which, yes, it can be very effective for a lot of mental health conditions, but it works so differently than, say, an antidepressant or a sleeping aid does. Pharmaceutical medications tend to work to manage a symptom, control a symptom, and they're reliant upon the mechanism of that drug. Earth medicines are very, very different in that they are igniting your own innate healing potential. So it's kind of giving your system, your physical body, your energetic body, your soul, this ignition point to catalyze greater healing within yourself. And so one of the things that's it just always floors people, and it did me as well, is one, how quickly sometimes it can work with people, especially if you have done a lot of other things in the past. Like if you are one of those people who has laid a foundation, you've meditated, you've done yoga, you've done the classes and the modalities, and you take good care of yourself, but you've just kind of gotten so far, or you're working with a condition and you've tried everything else and you've gotten so far, right? Lots of times those people can have a really immediate relationship and result with the medicine, but it's because you have laid a very strong foundation for a long, long time. So how does the medicine work differently? It works with your own healing potential, which means once you heal, it's yours to keep. It's not reliant on keeping microdosing over time. So it's going to be different for each one of you, but some of you might very well just microdose for 6 weeks or 3 months and bring yourself to a whole new set point, and you're good, right? You carry on and you enjoy your new level of health and vitality. And you might not come back to the medicine for another 6 months or a year when something else pops up in life, and then you decide to work with a different intention. I share this because so many people think that it's going to be like a pharmaceutical experience, that it's going to be something you're dependent upon, that you're addicted to, you're reliant upon. No, no. And it's often really fun to watch people when they come up to the time or it's time to take a break from practice, they worry that they're going to backslide or go back to the way they were. And then you realize that, it was me. It was me all along. It was just the medicine giving me this healing boost that I needed to get to a new set point. So, who am I? Who am I? You may wonder, like, how did I come to this work? So, I grew up in Pennsylvania in the United States, outside of Philadelphia. And I wanted to be a doctor growing up. Since the time I was a little kid, I always knew I was into health and healing and wanted to be of service. And I was on a pre-med track for as long as I can remember. And I was in college studying pre-med. And I had a very, very strong intuitive voice that said, it's time for you to go west to California. And for better or for worse, I listened to it. And I moved to California, and very shortly thereafter, I met my Reiki master. I started doing body work and somatics and energy medicine, intuition medicine, and went down a very different path than I had ever heard of or even had been aware of when I was a young child growing up in Pennsylvania. So I'm so grateful now, because even though my path was unconventional and non-traditional at the time, it very much set me up for the work that I'm doing today. To be an earth medicine guide, to be a microdosing guide, is very much based on energetics and being able to read energy. And now I see in hindsight, spirit was just lining things up all along, as it does, right? So I started doing full-time guideship work and microdosing facilitation back in 2020. I, like a lot of people, had to pivot during the pandemic. I had healing art studios in Northern California at the time. And what started out as some programs and courses to tide us over during the pandemic became my full-time profession and very much what I am here to do. So this brings us to today. I've now supported several thousand people in practice through group programs, through a global community. We also have a podcast to educate and bring different voices into the space, as well as a professional training program so that I can support many other people who are coming into microdosing facilitation and guideship as well. So I'm deeply passionate about this work. I cannot imagine my life without having had the healing and the gifts that this medicine has brought me. And it's such an honor to do this work with you today. So welcome and thank you for being here. So next question a lot of people ask is, where do I begin? Like, how do I know what medicine to start with? What kind of medicine? What dose? What protocol? I encourage and invite you to work with an experienced guide, which you're doing because you're here. So thank you. But I remember when I first started out, there wasn't any information. And that was the issue, is kind of, we were learning as we were going along. The guides that I could find, we would stay in touch with each other and share what we were learning. Fast forward to today, there's almost too much information. And I come to a lot of my first calls with my clients debunking and clarifying a lot of things, because there's so many different conflicting opinions out there, and oftentimes not based on real world experienced guideship. So thank you for being here, first of all. And we really, really encourage you to take your time. You know, some people like to decide things quickly, while other people are very tentative to practice. With this work, just know when you're first starting out, the first 6 weeks and the first 3 months of practice is really just opening the door. So take your time. It's very, very different than, say, a pharmaceutical experience where it's an on-off thing. It's an outside of yourself mechanism that is shifting and changing your biology and behavior. This is very much a relational experience with the medicine. The medicine is going to work with you very uniquely based on so many different factors: physically, mentally, biologically, spiritually, soul-wise. So just keep an open mind in terms of the timing will be unique for each of you. How the medicine will talk to you will be different for each of you. And just know this medicine is such a different experience than anything most people have ever experienced before. So I really encourage you, whatever you're kind of coming in with, or the preconceived notions or the expectations, is to hold them quite loosely and let spirit surprise you, because I continue to be surprised every day with what I see, kind of the majesty and the intelligence of these medicines and the wisdom that is so far beyond what we can really as humans can measure or really comprehend yet at this point. So suspend your intentions and see what lessons and gifts are to be bestowed to you. So when you're first starting out, I tend to work primarily with psilocybin mushrooms. They have been extraordinarily meaningful in my own life and my own healing. That is typically the medicine that most of my clients and in my group programs work with the most. However, there are a variety of other earth medicines out there to work with too that you will be able to enjoy and learn about as part of this program. So if you're starting out with psilocybin mushrooms, most people start in the range of, I would say, is 50 milligrams up to 200 milligrams is a microdose. If you go online and you read about microdosing, the average, I think, would probably be 100, 150 for most people. But in my experience, in my community and clients, I tend to work with a lot of pretty sensitive people. People are pretty naturally empathetic, pretty open spiritually. They've done a lot of practices coming in. So a lot of people I have worked with are perfectly fine at 50 milligrams. And then if you start there and you find that you need to go up a little bit, it's better to kind of start low and go slow, and then you can work your way up over time. I'm also finding now we are evolving as humans very, very quickly now. And the energy and how we heal is changing dramatically as we speak. And so I have really noticed how much medicine people need and how often their dosing has really shifted over the years. So at the present time right now, I'm actually finding people are doing very well with less medicine overall and actually less dosing days overall. So for example, when I first started out practicing on my own, I was doing a 5-2 protocol, meaning I was dosing 5 days on, 2 days off. And when I'm actively dosing, I often do that dose too today. However, I'm finding when people are new, a lot of people are really benefiting by more of a 3-day-a-week schedule, maybe an every other day or a 1 day on, 2 day off schedule. Really, I'm noticing a little bit of medicine is really going a long way, because I think people have a different capacity to heal much more quickly than we have had in the past. How do you figure out your personal dose? So I'll drop some information in here in your portal so that you'll have a variety of things to read and go through and see what resonates for you. Like I said, most people like to start at 50 milligrams or 100 milligrams. Fortunately, our medicine maker and source makes 50 milligrams so that it's really easy to just have the flexibility to go up or down over the course of time in your practice. So you can start with 50, maybe for a week or two, see how that goes. And then you can always just go up to 2 capsules up to 100 and give that a try. I encourage you to at least give anything you're trying maybe 2 weeks before you judge it. Again, this is very, very different than a pharmaceutical experience where it's going to be the same for every single person. It's very much not standardized. It's very much not based on body weight. There's so many other factors at play. So give it some time to connect with you before you change your protocol. In terms of the days of the week, there's many, many different protocols out there. I'll also drop some information on that into your portal so you can read up on that. But as I said, there's usually a 4-3 or 5-2. Those are the consecutive day dosing where you dose 4 days on, 3 days off, or 5 days on, 2 days off. Or you can do every other day, or the Fadiman protocol, which is dosing on 1 day and then taking 2 days off and then dosing again. So 1, 2, 1, 2 on those days. So again, I encourage you, whatever protocol you start with, give it at least a couple weeks before you change it up. Another question people often want to know is, what time of day? Does it really matter? I have found with psilocybin, it doesn't matter as much as some of the other medicines. Some of the other medicine, the time of day that you dose will be much more relevant to your experience. Psilocybin, though, most of the people I work with, and I tend to, when I'm actively working with the medicine, I like to dose in the morning, mostly because that's the time we're most aware, we're awake, we can experience subtle shifts and changes in our consciousness. The only time I have had people shift their dosing to the evening time is a lot of people's dream life lights up. And it's so fascinating. They have so much healing and content and symbolism and richness in their dreams that they're like, I think I want to dose at night just to kind of encourage that a little bit. Can I do that? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So always go with your intuition. Like if you start practicing and you get this strong nudge to dose around noon, or you get this strong nudge to dose in the afternoon, by all means, listen to your intuition above all. Medicine practice is really, really bringing you home to yourself, is what's happening. So you will find your intuition coming back online, your instincts coming back online, your body coming back online. A lot of us kind of move through this world from the neck up, right? We are in our heads all the time. So a lot of times what is happening is the medicine is really bringing you home to yourself, bringing you home to your body, bringing you home to your heart. It's very, very common for you to feel at a new level, meaning you can feel your body, you can feel things out of balance, you can feel energy, you can feel coherence versus incoherence, you can feel other people's energy more profoundly, which is really neat. Your intuition, psychic ability can come back online. Lots of times people are like, wow, I was in a meeting and I kind of knew what people are going to say before they said it. Is that normal? Absolutely. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. People report their just instincts are better. Like I'm a better driver. My reflexes are better. I kind of know and anticipate things better. Is this normal? Absolutely. Yes, it is. Yes. So in a way, it's kind of reconnecting us to our human in the best way. It's bringing back to our like animal body in the best way, where we're starting to reconnect with the earth and our natural rhythms again. So the medicine might lead you to start eating certain foods, start eating differently, start eating different times of day, letting go of some foods. You might go, I've never been a morning person, and all of a sudden I'm drawn to go to bed early and I'm waking up earlier before the sun comes up. I've never been that person to do that. It has a way of bringing you back into your natural biorhythms. It's also shown to really, really bring into balance for women's cycles in a really, really beautiful way. So I've worked with a lot of women who have really intense periods, really intense PMS, PMDD, who have a lot of relief, thankfully, from these extreme symptoms. And the medicine can help bring you back into your natural biorhythm and cycling up again with the moon cycles. So any side effects, a lot of times people are asked, what should I look out for? Is it addictive? Do I need to watch out for that? Is there any side effects that people have? Firstly, it is not addictive at all. It is one of the safest, psilocybin is one of the safest medicines and drug classes out there. So it is non-habit forming, it's non-addictive. The only addictive quality is the human, is our human. I always tell people like all the cautions that you may hear about mushrooms and magic mushrooms specifically, it's not the mushrooms that we have to be concerned about. It's the humans. It's the way the humans are holding the medicine. It's the way that humans are abusing the medicine. So it's not really one of the greatest misconceptions I find about mushrooms is people think that you are escaping your day-to-day life. In reality, though, when you work with mushrooms, you quickly realize you're not escaping anything with mushrooms. If anything, mushrooms are big truth, are big honesty. And so the people who work with mushrooms are people really ready to see it all, to face it all, who really want to heal, who really want to move forward in their life. And there's a courageous spirit in people, I find, that are ready for big honesty. Mushrooms are not going to help you escape anything, right? They bring you into yourself, in my experience, like nothing else does. So it's very, very different than, say, an alcohol experience or a typical, what you would think of as a drug escapist experience. So it's not something you would necessarily want to or need to keep doing over time. The quality of keeping doing it, I think, comes up because so many people have such amazing benefits. It's like, for myself, I had a grand mal seizure disorder since I was a teenager, and my seizures completely healed and stopped after I began microdosing. And I couldn't quite believe it, right? I didn't have any expectations of that. And when that happened, I was like, wow, is this going to keep? When I stop microdosing, are they going to come back? And so I understand that in people, when people have relief from cluster headaches or migraines or deep depression, they worry, if they stop practicing, is it going to come back? And in my experience, my seizures never returned. I don't ever worry about them returning. I go many, many, many months without practicing with the medicine physically. And I never worry about them returning because my nervous system is at a whole new set point. My energy and my coherence is at a whole new set point. And so I have a different capacity. So it's not that I don't feel anxious from time to time. I absolutely do. It's not that if you're working with depression, it's not that you will never feel sad or depressed again. It's just you will have a different capacity. It's like you have a different nervous system. You have more resilience, you have more capacity, and you're able to hold a greater spectrum of emotion after you have worked with mushrooms than before. So it's altogether different than really anything we have experienced. And certainly it's different than the mainstream way of holding healing as symptom management. What can you expect from microdosing practice? So typically, from witnessing so many of my clients, I have found there to be three basic arcs that people take. The first one is you start practicing, and within days, you feel benefits and gifts and better. It's remarkable. And this can happen across the board, physical symptoms, mental health symptoms, just instincts, nature connection, epiphanies, big dreams. All these things can happen in the very first week. I have noticed certain things, and again, I'll drop some writing around this into our portal here. I have noticed it tends to be people who have worked for many years on their healing, right? They have certain qualities, certain characteristics. And even though it seems like a miracle, sometimes when I sit with them, it's like, it's you, right? It's not a miracle. It's not just the mushrooms. It's you have been working for a very long time on your healing. And the mushrooms are simply the key that kind of has unlocked the door to catalyze everything. Like, I know for myself, I think the medicines healed my seizures because for so many years, I did so much meditation. I did so much body work. I did so much yoga and contemplative practice. I don't know that I would have had the remarkable results that I did have had I not laid a foundation of decades of work in advance. So yes, you can have immediate results, but it tends to be also reflective of what you came in with at the time. The second path and this was my experience too, is you can move quite a bit of emotion, even from microdosing at these subtle, gentle amounts. So lots of people, I'd say the most common one is grief. People can have some sadness come up, some old grief come up. We all hold things in our bodies. We all hold things from a previous lifetime, from childhood, from earlier in life experiences that are held in our tissues, right? And when we practice with earth medicines, that's what makes them so different than anything else. I, like a lot of you, have probably had a lot of therapy. I lost my dad at a young age, and I had done so many years of therapy around it. And I remember just talking and talking and talking about it and intellectually understanding his death, but I could never heal from it. I was like, am I ever going to heal from this? And then when I started working with mushrooms, it was able to access my soul and my healing to such an extent that no amount of talking, no modality, no drug, nothing could have touched except earth medicines. And so a lot of people have that experience where you have these old traumas, these old pains, sometimes from previous lifetimes, held in your field. And the only thing that can access them is mushrooms. So microdosing kind of elicits this emotional release. Sometimes it's irritability, sometimes it's fatigue, sometimes it's sadness, and some cathartic tears can come through. It typically doesn't last more than a few weeks. And it's just, I always remind my clients, you're feeling it because you're healing it. Like what we feel things when they're on the way out for release. So it's very common, think of doing a juice cleanse or fast, like you are bringing things up and out. It's not always the most comfortable when they're happening when you're doing a juice fast or a water fast or water cleanse. But you are moving substantial energy up and out of your body. And it's very common with microdosing practice. I've run a lot of groups over time where we see people over time, and it's really amazing to see week over week after week, especially when they're having these like purging reactions, cathartic reactions, to see them get lighter and brighter and more radiant week over week over week. And it's very fun. There's always at least one person I recall where the whole group is like, wow, you look different. You look lighter and brighter already. So those things go hand in hand. Sometimes people will say, am I going to be so emotional? Like I have a family, I have a big job, I have a lot of responsibility. I need to be resourced enough to live my day-to-day life. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I have never worked with someone yet who was not able to continue their day-to-day life while carrying the increased emotion that they were experiencing at the time. I think the biggest one, the most uncomfortable one for people is the fatigue. Some people get hit with fatigue, and it tends to be people who are very type A, very super productive people. They give themselves a very hard time when they're at rest, right? And so that can sometimes in practice be the hardest thing for those type of people, is to give themselves the gift of rest and knowing that you're being just as productive in your sleep and in your dreams that you would be doing anything actively, productively healing in your day-to-day life. I have found in my own life, like spirit oftentimes can do its best work with me when I'm sleeping. When I am processing big things in my dreams and I'm having nightmares, I am celebrating that because I know I am moving and I'm healing and I'm shifting energy, and it's in my sleep. Right? It's like zero effort. You get to experiencing that in your sleep. So that can happen, and just trust that you are resourced enough. And I have experienced my trust so much in the medicine that the medicine is always meeting us in the cadence that's perfect for us. Sometimes we want things more to be happening, and then there's always people who want less, a little bit less to be happening. But just trust everything is happening in its own divine timing. And sometimes looking back, you'll see, okay, that was the perfect timing. Like I was about to undergo this big shift in life that I didn't see coming. I was about to move. I was about to change jobs. I was about to meet my person. And looking back, the medicine was there to accompany me through that experience. And if I had had a bigger experience or a more subtle experience, it would not have been the same. So that's when I'm always like, trust and surrender to your experience, because the medicine is so incredibly wise. How do you know it's working? A lot of times people ask me, how do I know it's working? Lots of times you'll notice things, but there's subtle things, right? You'll notice your senses kind of dial up a little bit. Your sense of taste, your sense of touch, your sense of smell is just a little lighter and brighter. You'll notice your mood is different. You're just calmer, more uplifted. Lots of people are like, I'm just noticing I'm not sweating stuff anymore. It's sweet. A lot of times your kids will notice things in you before you do. Your kids will notice like, Dad, you're just more present, or you're more here, or you're listening to me more. You're not reacting to me as often. So just know lots of the things are going to show up in our relationships, right? Mushrooms are a very relational medicine. And so you might notice you're feeling different. You're feeling better. You're feeling more uplifted. You notice your reaction and responses are different, but also too, you can also not know much is going on, but the people in your life can very much notice what's going on, especially the most sensitive beings around us. Like if you have pets, if you have young children, they're much more sensitive than adult humans are. And so they'll start to notice shifts in your energy way before you do and start responding to you differently. We have untold stories of children and birds and animals, wild animals, as well as pets in our community and programs. It's remarkable. So keep an eye out for that too. But I'd say the biggest thing people share is those people who don't have immediate results, those people who don't have big emotions that are really noticeable come up. The people that have a much more subtle experience, this is what happens, where they practice for 6 weeks or 3 months, and they're like, I guess I noticed some little things. Things are, maybe a little bit more in flow. And then something happens. And then something happens, and just life's curveballs and twists and turns, lifing. And they'll come back and they'll go, I cannot believe how well I handled this situation. And they'll share, like, this would have thrown me for a loop. Like, this is how the old me would have handled the situation. And I couldn't believe how calm I was in the situation, how I responded in the situation, how I was able to metabolize the big emotions of the situation. And then they're like, yeah, I guess there's more going on than I thought. And that's exactly how the medicine works. When people aren't having as much of a response and a reaction and obviousness as they are hoping for, I always share with clients, like, picture the medicine is working at your root. Like, you might not be able to see it or feel it in your conscious awareness yet, but the medicine is never not working. Like, I've never met anyone yet where the medicine wasn't working. It didn't work for. I think sometimes it's just at such a deep, 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 deep level, at a root level, that sometimes it just takes time and hindsight to see, okay, I am a very different person 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later than I was. What is microdosing supportive of? Oh my goodness, so many different things. So my friends Jordan Gruber and Dr. James Fadiman wrote a beautiful, beautiful book, Microdosing for Health, Healing, and Enhanced Performance. That book they researched it, and it's so thorough, and it covers, you'll see in that book, there's just so many benefits and gifts and conditions that microdosing is positive for. It's pretty remarkable. I have certainly seen that to be true in all the people that I have worked with. It's so diverse. So those of you who are coming for physical health conditions and physical health symptoms, let me speak a little bit to them. So first of all, for any kind of nervous system condition, 100%. It might be seizures, it might be headaches, it might be migraines, it might be clusters, it might be TBI, concussions, stroke recovery, Parkinson's, anything to do with nervous system condition. Absolutely, psilocybin mushrooms I would recommend. And I would also recommend pairing it with lion's mane mushrooms. So lion's mane is a functional mushroom that is non-psychoactive. It pairs beautifully with psilocybin, and I give that stack credit for healing my seizures. That was the stack that I utilized early on when I was first practicing. So we'll drop some resources for you to access that as well. So all of those physical health conditions, but also too, I'll share a lot of our physical health conditions and even our mental health conditions. Lots of times we don't think of them this way, but they're rooted in a dysregulated nervous system. So we don't think of depression and anxiety as a nervous system condition, but they tend to be tied to a fixated, looping, ruminating mind. And when we work with psilocybin mushrooms, we kind of shake that up a little bit. We loosen it up. We loosen up that rigidity, those loops. And so we create new pathways. We create new possibilities. And so instead of looping on self-loathing, self-shaming, the past, mistakes we have made, instead of looping on worrying what might happen in the future, anxiety about this, that, and the other, we're in the present. Mushrooms bring us to our present, home into our body, and regulate and reset our nervous system. So even though we don't think of depression, anxiety as a nervous system condition, oftentimes we can soothe the symptoms of those conditions by regulating our nervous system. And so addictions also, so from OCD to eating disorders to alcohol addiction to cigarette smoking, cannabis reliance, like I've seen so many if not addictions, like people coming to practice going, I don't have an issue per se, but I've been relying and leaning on this substance or this activity or this behavior, and it's beginning to become detrimental to my life and my relationships. And psilocybin's very, very supportive of that because, again, that addictive mind tends to be that ruminating, kind of obsessing mind. When we can release a little bit and let go and be more expansive in our cognition, those symptoms just seem to dissipate. Particularly, and it's been remarkable how many people I have worked with who did not even intend to stop drinking alcohol, stop drinking alcohol. And that's for several reasons. I think it's a lot of people drink and reach for alcohol in social situations it's actually social anxiety. They feel better when the alcohol, it's a form of self-medication to relax them when they have social anxiety. They can talk and connect differently in dating situations or social situations. Also to combat stress. So when people start microdosing, they don't need that outlet anymore, right? That becomes kind of your permanent state of being. And so you don't need to have alcohol to socialize or to feel comfortable in your own skin anymore. It's easier to connect with other people suddenly. And so it just happens so naturally without any effort. And I think that's so novel to people that have so been trying to do cognitive behavioral therapy or talk therapy for things and behavior change. All of a sudden, it just kind of dissolves rather than a willpower situation. So it is any kind of addiction or obsessive looping type conditions, depression, anxiety, chronic worry, overwhelm, it can be really, really supportive of. Spiritual development, discovery, personal development, more and more and more people are coming for this reason, which I adore so much. And so we still see a lot of people coming for physical and mental health, but we also have a lot of people increasingly now just saying, I'm good. I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to do. I'm not perfect all the time, but I take decent care of myself. I have a good life, but I'm just kind of like on autopilot a little bit. I'm a little bit numb and I'm not fully living. And I want to feel alive. I want to feel connected to my life. I want deep and meaningful relationships. I want connection to my vocation. And somewhere along the way, I lost that. And it's not good enough anymore. And a lot of people are wanting to tap back into their vitality, their aliveness, their humanness, all of the beautiful qualities and characteristics that represent kind of the best of human nature. Our humor, our joy, our enthusiasm, our laughter, and our play, our creativity. So all of these are beautiful reasons. I love when they're like, I don't have anything wrong with me. And I'm like, that's great. It's great. Because we're here to grow. We're here to grow and change and transform. And so that's a completely valid, in some ways, that's the best reason to come, is to kind of be more of service, be more of who you are going forward. So more and more people are wanting to connect with themselves, connect to people in their lives differently, more deeply. And also, too, people are really drawn to connect with spirit and source now. I feel like we're really moving into this time where we're moving away from kind of the gurus and the institutions and the idea of the divine being something outside of ourselves, and really coming home to, we are divine beings. Like, we all are connected to source. We all are connected to our God in whatever form that takes. And practice for many, many people is a sacred practice. So for some people, it might be a lifestyle practice. For some people, it might be a health benefit and a supplement practice. But for many, many people that I work with, it is truly a sacrament. It is how they connect with spirit. It is how they shift and kind of thin the veil in their own earthly reality to be able to listen to their dreams, to hear their ancestors, to connect with their guides and their angels and spirit, ultimately preparing to do some deeper work with the medicine and journey work with the medicine. So all of those intentions are absolutely welcome. And you might surprise yourself. Like, I was one of those people when I started microdosing, I never, ever, ever thought that I would be drawn to do deeper work and journey work with the medicine. And those journeys turned out to be absolutely the most profound and healing experiences of my life that I'm so, so grateful for today. So you never know. You never know. Come to this practice with a very open mind, because it'll oftentimes exceed any expectation you might have for it. All right. Well, thank you so, so much for being here. You will be treated to an array of resources, things to watch and read and learn, breadcrumbs to follow along your path. If you ever have any questions, you're welcome to reach out. We have a lot of in-depth programs. We have a global community of wonderful microdosing guides just ready to support you around the world with our programs and one-to-one coaching programs. So thank you again so, so much for being here. I'm celebrating you and wishing you all the best on your path. Thank you for listening to the Microdosing for Healing podcast. Ready to take the next step? Please visit us online at microdosingforhealing.com. There you'll find lots of information about our global community, professional training programs, and upcoming immersions. See you there.